Okay, Book of Amos, chapter 6. We weren't here last week. We were in Oregon. So thanks for, holding down the fort wherever you guys were. I don't know where you were holding forts.
I wish.
But there you go.
We went to the family one.
You went to the family one? Was it good?
Yeah, donuts.
Donuts? Well, we have donuts. And we have hot chocolate, so...
Yeah, it was a substitute.
There you go. Okay, chapter 6. This chapter in the book of Amos serves as a stark warning against spiritual complacency. Okay? Whilst Israel has prosperity, there's this spiritual complacency. Okay? It's written by the prophet Amos. What? Give me some facts about Amos. Go.
He was an average shepherd.
Shepherd?
He tended the tree.
He's a tree keeper, like branch trimmer and stuff like that. Dress the trees, okay? Where was he from? We've said this every single week. It's a fun place to say. Not last week. Well, I might have said Tekoa. Tekoa in Judah. Can anyone remember roughly the time when this book was, or when he was called to do this prophecy? Around 760, 750 BC. Okay, so during the reign of King Jeroboam II of Israel. So we have a lot of time segments here. Okay, we just know where it is. It's really well documented that it was like this. And the great thing about that is that we can track when was there King Jeroboam II. That's when Amos was written, because he's talking about him being reigning and ruling at that time. Okay, so it's highlighting a time of economic boom in the northern kingdom of Israel. However, this wealth, we talked about this 2 weeks ago, the wealth masked these deep social inequalities, this idolatry. I don't remember what idolatry was going on.
They were worshiping the Babylonian gods, right?
Yeah, all the different mixture of gods going on, that's right. And then even the moral decay. Can anyone remember what was going on to all the other people whilst they were partying and worshipping? What were they doing?
The rich were storing the poor.
They were just taking advantage of everyone. I like this. Good job for remembering all that stuff. I know it's been 2 weeks, so it's good. You got another one?
Yeah, they were also mistreating the poor at the very same time. And forcing them to do things and forcing the prophets to shut up. So.
Yeah, keeping people's mouths shut, misusing them, mistreating them, using them as stepping stones to make them richer, more wealthier, and everything like that. So you have Amos. In all of this, Amos speaking on God's behalf. He condemns the elites, their luxurious lifestyles, whilst the poor suffered. The message through this is timeless. True security comes from righteousness, not riches. Complacency isn't about laziness, not just laziness. It's a deliberate turning away from what God's call is to justice and humility, which obviously led to Israel's downfall. Because that's what this was all about. A warning, several warnings saying this is going to happen. And they just ignored it, and then it happened, and everyone's all shocked, like, God, why would you make this happen to us? And he's like, I've given you like 10 warnings. Are you kidding me? So we see this in throughout the whole book of Amos. But in chapter 5, we see God even urged Israel to seek the Lord and live. Wanting repentance and justice. And now in Amos 6, the focus is shifting to exposing the root of their rebellion, okay? There's lots of context about the chapter, but it's good to understand. It's all about complacency. The northern kingdom of Israel was at its peak. It was militarily strong, economically prosperous, so rich, expanding borders with victories over neighboring nations. And Samaria, the capital, symbolized with these amazing ivory palaces and fortified hills. They were in a good spot. But underneath that, even though they looked good, they looked secure, they looked healthy, underneath the surface, there was corruption. The wealthy, as Isaac said, oppressed the poor. As Antonio said, they had unjust courts and exploitative practices. We see that in Amos 2, 6 and 7, and Amos 5, verse 11. And then Amos draws on imagery from everyday life, farming, music, and feasting to contrast the self-indulgence with God's standards. So this chapter continues on through that, okay? So let's jump in here, okay? And we'll go through this chapter. Section 1 is verses 1 through 3. Woe to the careless and confident. So, it starts off this word, woe. Not like a, whoa, that was awesome. More like a, oh no, what's going to happen here? Because it's kind of more looking at the negative. Like a prophetic lamenting, targeting the leaders in both the southern kingdom, which is Judah, and then the northern kingdom, which is Samaria. So we can see that when it says in Zion and of Samaria. Okay, so you've got the southern kingdom, Zion, the northern kingdom, Samaria. Okay, and at ease, we can see there's this implying carelessness, this security, this arrogance. They trusted in Samaria's mountain, natural defense, right? I don't know about you guys, but have you ever built like on Minecraft? You imagine the zombie hordes coming, and you're like, I'm going to build in a tall place. I'm going to get to the top of the hill and build there, so when the enemies come and attack, they're going to have a struggle getting up the hill. In England, all the way across England, there are these hill forts, and what they would do is they take a normal looking hill and they'd dig big dips like that. So armies would go, and it would slow them down, and their hill would be on top. Like their fort would be on top of the hill, sorry. And it would be all this wooden things with poles poking out, and they'd be firing arrows, throwing stones, the whole time this army's coming up the hill. Because it makes it tough. So they're using this location on top of the mountain as a security rather than God. They're putting all their trust in where they are instead of who they should be following. And it says the chief of the nations. So we see that they see themselves as elite. They're giving themselves a title, like a standard, and they draw admiration from others. But it was hollow pride. Okay. Historically, under Jeroboam II, Israel regained territories and influences. We can see that in 2 Kings 14:25. But they basically brought with those victories brought false confidence. Okay, Amos is reminding them that true leadership comes from God dependence, not self-reliance. Does that make sense? Okay, good. I think it's one of those things in our lives, Zion, or the areas on top of the hills, could be our comfort zones. It could be a stable job. It could be a safe house, a comfy bed, our status in school. Are we a straight A student? Are we struggling? Whatever it is. The thing is, the question we should ask is, are you relying on those things more than God? Are you relying on those things more than God? Because actually, if you think I need to be a straight A student instead of just following God, actually that can go hand in hand. You honor God by working hard in school. You honor God by taking the opportunities that are put in front of you that other people don't have. So think about that. When you're thinking about what could be your Zion, your Samaria, your city on top of the hill, safe place, what are you putting all of your value into in your life? Is it God, or is it this fortress that could very easily be taken over? In Proverbs 16:18, it tells us, pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. I think this is a really key part to think about. When we think about that first verse, when they're talking about the trust and the confidence they're putting into their hill forts or their kingdoms, that pride is going to come before a fall. There's going to be destruction that follows because you're putting your belief in that instead. So verse 2, it says, pass ye unto Calne and see, and from thence go ye to Hamath the Great, and then go down to Gath of the Philistines. Do they better than these kingdoms, or their border greater than your border? Okay, does anyone know of any of these places or people or cities that we're being talked about? Go for it. Okay, Philistines, who are they? You've heard of them? No, it's good. Who's the Philistines? Anyone else? Who knows?
The people who sent Goliath.
Goliath from Gath. So we've got some crossover here. This is good, okay? God instructs Israel to examine fallen empires in this situation. He's saying, Calne, likely in Mesopotamia, was conquered by Assyria. Hamath, Assyrian city-state, was subdued around 738 BC. And Gath, where Goliath was from, Goliath of Gath, was a Philistine stronghold defeated by Israel itself under Uzziah in 2 Chronicles 26:6. So the rhetorical questions, they kind of highlight irony through all of this. Does this make sense to you guys? If you think you're high and mighty, go and see those places. You think yourself so good, go and see what happens to those who think that. Okay? These once mighty places fell despite their size, despite their strength, and Israel's borders weren't superior, and their fate would be the same without repentance. Okay? This verse uses something I kind of like, is a little bit of sarcasm. There's a sarcastic tone under there of like, oh, you think you're so good, huh? Well, go see the other guys who thought that too. And it's kind of like a little poke. In Isaiah 10:5-19, it also does the same kind of tone, which is fun. So, but it's foreshadowing Assyria's rise as God's instrument of judgment that's going to happen. Okay. Anyone think of any other big kingdoms that fell after they took over half of the world or majority of the world? Anyone can think of anyone?
I think it was Rome.
Rome. Yeah. That's the one I've got down here as well. Rome was powerful, big kingdoms, and then it just destroyed real fast. Big companies that went real big and then collapsed. You guys are way too young, but Blockbuster used to be a video renting service. You go in and you rent it, and they ignored streaming. You know, streaming's not going to be a big thing. And then, like, basically overnight, they went from Blockbuster, the best thing ever, to Blockbuster, irrelevant, because streaming came along. No one wants to have their DVDs and videos picked out in a store when you can just stay on your butt on a couch. You know? So, but these companies, these kingdoms, these people, they thought they were unbeatable. But adaptability and humility are key. Lessons that Israel right now are ignoring. So think about the fallen giants of history. What empires in your life feel secure but might crumble? Use this as a prompt, really, to say thank you. Thank you to God for making it clear to you. See where it comes through in your life. Verse 3, yea, that put far away the evil day and cause the seat of violence to come near. They put far away. What does that mean? If you put something far away, what does that mean? What do you got?
They want to forget it.
Forget it?
And you just leave it away in the corner.
It's still there, though, right?
It's there, but it's like hidden, far
Right.
away.
Kind of deny that it's even
Tucked
there.
in
though.
a corner.
Yeah. If I can't see it, it's not going to bother me, right? Tidy your room. Well, my room's tidy in my mind. I'm not going to open my eyes, right?
Sometimes you think in the closet.
That's it, or under the bed, because it's out of sight, out of mind, right? So they're trying to do the same thing. They're denying this evil day of judgment, living as if consequences don't exist. Ironically, again, their violent oppression, the seat of violence that they've been pushing onto the poor people, the lower class, is accelerating their doom and judgment, which is pretty aggressive. The Hebrew for seat suggests a throne or a system of injustice, kind of like a court, like the big the judge at the end of it, right? Which comes back to their corrupt court system as well. So this mindset reflects a broader biblical theme. Sin's delay in punishment leads to false security. When we studied through Ecclesiastes, we picked up on that theme, Ecclesiastes 8:11 as well. I think that's the tough thing about this. We need to kind of have a look at our own lives and see where we're denying stuff. What are we trying to hide? What are we pushing to the edges so we don't have to cope with it right now? Because that's the stuff that's going to come back up later on. You know? Address those things, address those areas, address those things that you're trying to sweep under the rug now so they don't become bigger later on in life. Okay, and we're going to go to section 2. 4-8. Feasting whilst others fall. Okay? 4-8. So we see ivory beds. What does that say to you? You walked into someone's house and they're like, this is my bedroom. You open the door. It's like a normal bedroom door. But you open the door and it's an ivory bed. What does that say to you? Go for it.
I'm overly rich.
Overly rich, right? This is a little bit ridiculous. But it's like an extravagant thing. Ivory nowadays is illegal, you know, you're not allowed to import, you're not allowed to kill elephants for it or rhinos for it. It's a legal practice to do. But this kind of shows you back in those days, it was an import from like Africa or India. It was like basically highlighting wealth. We have the trade circles to get this stuff. We have the money to pay for it. Look at my bed. Crazy. Actually, what's up?
The fact that they use it for their bed shows how much.
It's kind of crazy, right? So they lounged in luxury, they feasted on choice meats, lamb and calves reserved for the elite, whilst the poor struggled. All right, Amos 8, 4 through 6, we're going to see this again in 2 weeks' time. But also we see this before, when they'd done their feast and only invited the elites and didn't invite those poor people. It's selfish, that's what it is. Here's the thing, archaeology actually confirms this type of thing happening, okay? Excavations in Samaria revealed ivory carvings aligning with 1 Kings 22:39. So if you read 1 Kings 22:39, it's really cool because you can actually look that up on Google and find these ivory carvings as well. But think about it like this. You've got a billionaire partying out on a yacht, global cruises raging, ignoring pleas for help from all the poor people around, just partying, just living the dream. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Well, because actually that's what Israel's doing right now. They weren't sharing, they were hoarding, they were partying, they weren't caring for people. And we actually see that what we should be doing there, Deuteronomy 15, 7, 11, is caring for people and loving the people around us, right? Being generous, looking after those around us. Verse 5, that chant to the sound of the viol and invent to themselves instruments of music like David. Also music with the extra K at the end when it's pretty sick music, all right? It doesn't mean that, okay? But we see this word chant. We think chant and people will be like, it's a chant at a football game or it's a song or something like that. You know, chanting, stuff like that. It kind of implies idle singing or improvisation on stringed instruments, the viol, okay? They mimicked David, who was famous for psalms and playing the harp, 1 Samuel 16:23. But their music was self-centered entertainment, not worship after God's own heart. This perverts God's gift. Creativity is meant for what?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, for God.
For God, right?
For God, yeah.
To praise Him, to worship Him. And actually, if we're not doing that, what are we doing? We're pulling ourselves away from Him, you know? That's really tough, because the people who don't even know God, half the musicians in the world have been given these amazing gifts. And they don't know that what they're doing is actually pulling you further away from God. Or maybe they do know. Who knows? But the whole point is, God's given gifts for a reason, and it's to worship Him, to lift up His name. It's kind of like I went to a Christian festival when I was like 12 or 13. I didn't know it was a Christian festival. I thought we were just going camping. It was in Shepton Mallet, and we went there in this massive, big top tent, and it's a festival called Soul Survivor. And they had this disco party every night. And you'd go along, and they would remix worship songs with normal music, like worldly music. And it'd be over the top. And you're like, and they'd be like, amazing grace. And you're like, this isn't the same song anymore. This isn't the same feel. This isn't the same anything. You know, that's the tough part about it. It's lost the heart. It's lost the meaning for what it was actually trying to do. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. Because people can do that if you're doing it the right way, which is worshiping God. You can make that type of music. But when you're saying, I want to put the world's music and put God's lyrics into the world rejects God. That's the whole point. Right? God's better than that. But David's music drew him closer to God. This music that they were playing pulled them further away, okay? Think about what you're listening to. Think about what you're watching. Think about what you're putting into your head. I kind of say this often, but I like saying it. What you put in will eventually come out. This is true. If you're watching movies with cursing in it and violence in it, no wonder you're aggressive and you've got a bad tongue. You know? That's a big thing. What about some of the stuff in the world today that you can be whatever you want? Boys can be girls, girls can be boys. You could be an animal, you could be an object, you could be whatever you want. But then if you watch it enough, you're going to start believing that's actually true. God created you a certain way. That's the way it should be. You know, we shouldn't be perverting that. So think about that, and even on my music stuff, I have a little playlist, and it's Christian music. And it's funny because I'll put that on. And it's the number one selected one in our house, the number one selected in our car when we're driving. It's just there. It's the one that's always being played, which is great. Think about how we can honor God with what we're even watching, listening to, and putting into our brains. Okay? Verse 6, that drink wine in bowls and anoint themselves with the chief ointments, but they are not grieved for the affliction of Joseph. Drinking from bowls. Is that weird? What do you think?
A bowl has a whole lot more than a cup.
Kind of excessive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're drinking wine from a bowl. If you had a hot chocolate and you're like, hey, can I have a hot chocolate? And you're like, sure, and you get a goldfish bowl and you start pouring hot chocolate into a gold. I'm going to say to you, you're using way too much hot chocolate, right? It's over the top. What's up?
They do that in France.
They do that in France?
Yes,
Well,
I've actually had it before.
don't get me started on the French, okay?
It was for breakfast too.
So, you have this over excessiveness. There's so much, I want to have it all, I want to drink it all. And then you have these ointments that are super pricey. And then even we look at the affliction of Joseph, which refers to Israel's suffering masses. Joseph was an ancestor of Ephraim, a Manasseh tribe, okay? They lacked empathy and they violated God's command to love neighbors that we can find in Leviticus 19. So these people, they got punished for that as well. I think that's the tough thing. When people shut their eyes to what's going on in the world and they choose to do something else, you're going to miss the whole point. I thought about this. Do you ever mute conversations on your phone? If you're in a text thread with like 10 people, and you're like, there's too many texts coming through, gonna mute it. Don't want to hear this anymore. I've done that a couple of times, guilty. And I'll just be on YouTube and I'll be scrolling and be like, that's funny, that's funny. Oh, I should probably check the text thread. You're like, 27 messages, what's going on? I'd be like, Grandma's fallen over and broken her hip. Jamie, we need you, help, come in. Where are you, Jamie, where are you? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I was scrolling over here, minding my own business, not wanting to deal with all that stuff. That's kind of what was happening here, you know? We are called to look after other people, to serve other people, to love other people more than ourselves, right? Romans 12:15 even tells us that true joy includes mourning with others. We're meant to care. As Christians, we're meant to care for other people, okay? So practice empathy. Reach out to someone who's hurting or maybe struggling. That's all part of faith. That's all part of following Christ, okay? Verse 7, therefore now shall they go captive with the first that go captive, and the banquet of them that stretch themselves shall be removed. So exile is happening now. It's going to happen. The elite first will lead the captives. Banquets end in chains, fulfilling Deuteronomy 28:41's curse for the covenant breaking, okay? So Deuteronomy 28:41 is the reference there if you want to write that down. But we see historically and archaeologically this has been proven that Assyria deported Israel's leaders in 722 BC. We can see that in the Bible in 2 Kings 17:6. Think about it as like these parties that go on and then they get raided by the police. You know, they shouldn't be happening, the parties shouldn't be happening, there's things going wrong. The police come and they break it all up and everyone runs away. In this situation, Israel couldn't run away. They've had warnings. The police are coming. They've had warnings. The police are coming. Music gets turned up louder. Don't care. The police are coming. Pour out more wine. Don't care. The police are coming. Forget those clowns. Keep partying. We don't care. And then when they show up, they're like, oh no, no one told us. Now, God's been giving you lots of warnings. Lots and lots of warnings, okay? I think the key thing about all of this is they were feasting whilst others fell, right? They were feasting, they were partying, and then it led to their demise. Verse 8, which is our final one in section 2 here. The Lord God hath sworn by himself, I abhor the excellency of Jacob, and hate his palaces. Therefore will I deliver up the city with all that is, therein. God's oath by himself, Hebrews 6:13, seals certainty. It will happen because it's being done by him. Okay? The excellency of Jacob is prideful splendor. We already know that how these palaces have been made. Isaac already talked about that. Antonio already talked about that, about the ripping off of the poor to make our places better. In Micah 3:9-12, it also tells us that palaces built on oppression are detestable. Detestable. That's such a strong word, but it's true. It shouldn't happen. Think about it as like a trophy from cheating, but even worse. Think about it as a fortune made off of ripping other people off, but even worse. Think about slavery that was never sorted and fixed, and people oppressed and taken advantage of. That's where we're at right now, okay? Section 3, from banquet to burial. It's kind of dark now, okay? But 9-14, okay? Verse 9, it shall come to pass, if there remain 10 men in one house, that they shall die. Remember when we played that game, Mingle? Everyone has to mingle around, mingle, and you say 10, and you have to get into groups of 10. Imagine if you got into groups of 10 and they were like, well, there's 10 of them, let's kill them. It's too many. But what I was saying here is there's total devastation going on. No survivors, even in groups. It echoes the plague-like judgment that we read about in Exodus 12, but it's kind of reversed, right? Think about hiding from a tsunami, running away from a flood. It only works if you're reaching a higher ground. Well, the higher ground here is God. It doesn't work unless you go to God. In verse 10, we talk about our uncles, and we talk about our family members. That's because the burial rites that would happen, your family would usually have to bury you back in those days, okay? Burial rites turn grim. The burning of bodies, not burying of bodies, which is unusual for Jews. Indicating desperation from disease or war. So basically, if they didn't have enough time to bury you, they would burn you. If there was a disease in your body, they wouldn't bury you, they would burn you. If there's too many people to bury all at once, they would burn you. It's kind of sad. But think about that whole section right there, verse 9. There's silence about God. Sorry, verse 10. There's silence. No, you hold your tongue, for we make not mention of the name of the Lord. You can't talk about God. You talk about God's, you die. Don't talk about God. Well, if you don't talk about God, it shows that you are spiritually bankrupt. There's nothing left inside of you. You've got nothing left. It kind of reminds me of like, you going up to a funeral, and people are like, say your last words. Say bye to your buddy. I've had to do that a few times. A lot of my friends back in England, they went through bad things, and they overdoses on drugs or did some stupid stuff and got themselves really hurt. And they would pass away, and you go to the casket and they say bye to your friend. Like, they're already gone. I've got nothing else I can say. And what's tough about that is it's kind of like whispering regrets too late at a funeral. This is what we're kind of seeing here as well. Verse 11, for behold, the Lord commandeth, and he will smite the great house with breaches, and this little house with clefts. Okay, anyone know what breaches are? We talked about this. Remember Lord of the Rings? Helm's Deep, come on.
There are holes in the main city walls.
Yeah. So a breach in the wall is when the orc in Helm's Deep, nerd time, guys, nerd time. He runs up and he plants that big bomb, and they all go roar, and then they light the fuse, and it goes, and you see all these elves flying off the walls like no, and then there's this big opening where the orc army, the Uruk-hai army, could get in and start attacking and killing people, trying to take the Helm's Deep. And it's really interesting when it says that actually God's going to allow this to happen. There's going to be breaches, openings where the enemies can come in. But what we see with that is that judgment equalizes. Judgment equalizes everyone. We're all going to be judged, whether we're rich or poor, good or bad in our own standards, healthy or unhealthy, boy or girl, married or unmarried. We all get judged. We all get judged the same way. And that's if you love Jesus Christ or not. Well, this judgment brings breaches and clefts, meaning cracks or crevices, like earthquake style, opening up these big openings for the enemies to come through. That's pretty terrifying to think of, especially when you think they were so comfy in their big fortress on top of the hill, on top of the mountain. No one can take us over. Well, God can do whatever he wants, right? Verse 12, shall horses run upon the rock? Will one plow there with oxen? For ye have turned judgment into gall, and the fruits of the righteousness into hemlock. Okay, this is weird. This is weird imagery. Does anyone understand any of that? Shall horses run upon the rock? Can they? Why can't they? I don't know. Right? What about have you turned judgment into gall and the fruit of righteousness into hemlock? Does that make any sense to you guys? It kind of, to me, it's just kind of this weirdness. Absurd imagery which brings about a kind of the perversion of what God wanted. Horses aren't really known to run on rocks. They're meant to run in fields. Yeah? Oxen trying to plow on a rock. Are you going to be able to plow a rock? No. You're going to blunt the plow. You're going to break the plow. You're probably going to end up breaking the oxen's back. They're meant to plow fields. There's a difference here, right? You're on top of a mountain. How many fields do you have? On top of a mountain? Probably not many, right? And I think that's the thing. We're seeing here justice, which is the judgment, poisoned like gall. What is gall or hemlock? Does anyone know anything about that? It's this bitter, deadly plant. You're basically saying judgment, this justice that's meant to be good because it's from a just and a good judge that is God, is now being poisoned. And you're saying, actually, Israel, you should know this. You should know that God is good. You should know that he's the just God. And righteousness should really bear fruit, not toxin, not death, really. Psalm 89:14 tells us more about that as well. And I kind of used this in my, last time I was preaching in the Sunday service. I said, you wouldn't just get a glass of water and put a little drop of poison in and be like, it's still good. You wouldn't drink that, right? No, because it would be pretty nasty. We've done this before as well, when you get like a Coke and you put it in there and you pour some water in and you go, yeah, look at that, that's the Coke's coming out and the water's staying in the bottom and it gets kind of flooded out. You wouldn't drink a watered down Coca-Cola. That's that exact face right there. It's nasty. Okay, it's nasty. What we're saying here is justice is meant to be pure. Judgment is meant to be pure. It is from a just God. It's from a good Father. But when we come and say justice and judgment is this, we're watering it down. We're putting toxicity into it, and we're making it something more human than how God intended it. And that's what's happening here. We're feeding poison instead of fruit, that type of situation. So verse 13, yea, which rejoice in the thing of naught, which say, have we not taken to us horns by our own strength? Horns. What do we know about horns? Anyone know anything about horns?
Rhinoceros, elephants, things native to Africa and imports.
Okay.
What,
What, in the Bible, anything about horns in the Bible? Find Deuteronomy 33, verse 17.
His glory is like the bursting of his bull lock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorn. With them he shall push the people together to the end of the earth, and they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh.
Joseph, right? Who we talked about there, the ancestor. But also, the unicorn there is a what? We're not talking about a unicorn that's all pink and fluffy and flying over rainbow bows and stuff. What is it?
Rhinos.
One-horned rhino. Power. Pure power. Okay? That horn symbolizes just pure power. You guys ever seen a rhino running around? Boy, they can't turn fast, but they are pretty scary running at you. You ever been charged up by an elephant? I did once in Africa on the back of a Jeep. It came through the bush, and we were like sat there like, oh, we can't see anything, and it came flying through, not flying, running. Elephants don't fly. We all know that. but charging through, boom, 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 smashing down these branches, breaking everything, all angry, big bull elephant, and sure enough, it charged us, and it was like, man, this thing is just powerful. You felt the ground, boom, 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 and you're in the back of a Jeep. It's legit, okay? So, we see these horns, they're boasting about power, about might, about things like that. But also in Israel's situation, it's boasting empty victories, ignoring God's role in all of these things. Hosea 8:14 talks a little bit about that as well. It's kind of like you're claiming solo credit for a team win. Anyone here like football? Or you'd call it soccer? Cristiano Ronaldo? Some would say he's the greatest player in the world. I would say they're wrong. Based on one fact. Whatever team Cristiano Ronaldo has joined, it's always been about Cristiano Ronaldo. When he scores, he doesn't run to the team and celebrate. He runs to the corner and celebrates on his own. And you go, that means that you're focused on your solo and not the team. Yeah, he makes the team better. He's a good footballer. He's a great footballer. But that reason on its own is enough for me to say he's not the greatest footballer in the world. Deal with it. Okay? But what we are seeing here is, don't go solo. See this as a team thing. Find people around you who will walk this journey with you, to run this race with you, and give God the credit he deserves in successes, okay? Final verse. Final verse. But behold, I will raise up against you a nation, O house of Israel, saith the Lord, the God of hosts. And they shall afflict you from the entering of the Hamath unto the river of the wilderness. Okay. Hamath is where Assyria invaded. Okay, it was the North Arabian border, and they basically burst through. There were so many of them, that's where they attacked. And we get this vision of this fortress on top of the mountain completely breached, destroyed. Amos 6 paints a vivid portrait of a nation that was doomed. It was doomed by selfish luxury, which prioritized pleasure over people. False security, which was trusting might over the Almighty, okay? And denied judgment, ignoring warnings until too late. And the perversion of justice, turning good into evil, okay? Theologically, understanding this, it underscores God's holiness. In Micah 6:8, we can see that God demands justice. In Isaiah 1:13-17, you can see that God hates hypocrisy. For often, and all the way through, hope glimmers. Repentance could always swing this and change this, okay? Amos 5:14 through 15. Okay, got a couple of questions for you and we'll be finished here, okay guys? First question is, how can everyday comforts, phone streaming, lead to pride or distraction from God? Think about their everyday comforts, their parties, their wine, their feasting, and everything like that. Think about it for yourselves. How can this lead to pride or distractions from God? It's a good question to ask. Second one here, recall a time you trusted your strength over God's. What happened and what did you learn? When you built that fortress on top of the mountain, when you said, no one can beat me, and then suddenly you were beaten, what did you learn from this? Who are you giving credit in this situation? Then the third one, I'll leave this up for you guys, but third one here, how does this chapter challenge your view of success? Israel thought they were very successful. They had a great fortress, a great economy, lots of food, great parties, lavish lifestyles, ivory beds. Look how great this is. But actually, it doesn't tell you much about real success. It talks about human success, but not success from God's eyes. What does this chapter talk to you about? How does it challenge your view of success in your life?